Catherine Delahunty. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora anō te whare paramata. I'd also like to acknowledge the Minister. I agree that she's been a passionate Minister. I think we've disagreed on virtually everything, but I'm not disputing her passion. And I think that passion is really important in education. There's nothing worse than people that aren't interested and don't care. But also sometimes passion can do a lot of damage as well. So I think her and I both agree that we both care, we may not agree. With regard to this bill, I just listened very carefully to the Minister's third reading speech and I tried to understand it, and it's curious, some of the language, that this bill is driven by parents having choice, which can be translated as meaning people who already have choice will get more choices. That there will be flexibility, see people with choices having more choices, and personalised diverse needs of young people in real time fit for purpose. I absolutely don't think that has any meaning whatsoever, and I don't think that's what the bill's about, and I don't see the point of talking like that to the country, because people want you to talk, and people want the Minister and the MPs to talk like human beings. So real purpose, fit for time, personalised what? Whole of pathway, organised efficiency and effectiveness? I mean, sorry, but I think the public deserves some coherence around the education system, and this is not it. Perhaps she had to make this stuff up because this bill is actually a bit of a messy omnibus, which the Select Committee, and I do respect the members of the Select Committee, but the Select Committee had a big fight. And I think Tracy Martin outlined that very clearly. A couple of things that we disagreed on. One, there was no reason for some of these things. That the officials could not answer questions about why some of these things were happening, where the demand was, because a lot of the stuff was just something the government made up for other reasons. And then there was the debacle, the embarrassing debacle over the SOP around Teach First, where the opposition had to fight tooth and nail to make sure that affected parties like the PPTA, who are heavily involved, not opposing Teach First, but heavily involved, actually got heard, rather than have this big SOP suddenly dumped on the Select Committee, pretending that it was nothing to do with the teachers' organisations that actually have to manage the relationships through Teach First. So I don't think this is the crowning glory of the Minister's career or anyone's career. It's a weird bill. It's probably not as bad as the next one's going to be in education, to be honest, but apparently it's a whole of pathway organised efficiently and effectively. I don't know who for. However, maybe all will be revealed. I think it's really important to talk about why the word choice is such a misused word by the government. It's their main platform. It's like a hands-off, trust the community, everything's fine, we're on a level playing field and all people have choices, blah, blah, blah. But if you think about, for example, the flexible working hours, the flexible school hours, I've never forgotten meeting a parent who said that she had huge stress being a good parent to children in school because she was working 3 jobs and so was her husband. This was in Porirua, and that they loved their kids getting a good education and they had an excellent school, but they needed their school to be very predictable because they were already juggling these 3 jobs each and the constant interchange between them to actually even see each other and to do the handover. And so mucking around with the structures of people's lives who do not have the same choices as other people. It's absolutely fine if you're a couple of professionals working from home, and I know people who are doing this, running a small business from home and managing your lives, and you can shoot down to the school at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, but it's absolutely not fine when you're on a fine balance to risk that being put out of balance. That's what people are concerned about, because those people are already struggling. I don't want to make laws for people who already have multiple choices and privileges. I want to make laws for people who are vulnerable to the variabilities of the world and need more support and need things to be predictable. And also, they couldn't come up with a good reason, because actually lots of schools already have flexible working hours. I don't know what the problem is. So schools where it's been proven, because actually I would have liked an education bill to have been about learning, but none of them seem to be about learning. They're always about some kind of governance or ideological privacy, privatisation agenda. actually the kids get to, in some schools, the older kids, because we know that older teenagers seem to like to sleep in and stay up late, they already have adjusted their school hours. That flexibility already exists. So, you know, don't come and tell us that we need this rubbish. It's not true. And no one could come up with a good reason for it. The Teach First stuff, well, I always feel really sorry for qualified people who've come out of 3 years of serious training and then have a debt, and then someone comes along and doesn't have to do it. And it does undervalue the importance of what people go through in terms of the serious learning about what education means. And I guess that's what I mean by this bill, which is all about governance. It's about flexible hours, principle at several schools, again, something dreamed up by somebody who sees it as an efficient pathway to organise the effectiveness or whatever, actually doesn't seem to be connected with education. Actually, we're here on the Education Select Committee and in this House to talk about learning and what is best for kids, but they're not getting a look in while we're so busy being flexible and full of choice and opportunity. Opportunity in education is nothing to do with the hours of the school. Or multiple principles. It's to do with relationships and the commitment to allowing the New Zealand curriculum, which is owned to be an excellent curriculum, to be developed and communicated and it's the content that matters, and it's the teachers understanding what learning is that matters. It's not all this stuff. I'm really disappointed that I can't think of hardly any bill, except the National Standards ghastly debacle, that's had anything to do with the content of education in my entire 7.5 years on the Select Committee. And this bill's another deep disappointment to my passionate soul. So I'm sorry that we're going to vote against it, but we are. I also want to talk about another rather unfortunate idea in the bill, which is that tertiary institutions should run charter schools. Opportunity is not, again, about imagining that universities are the best capable of teaching in primary schools. And so like the Teach First thing, where they wouldn't rule out primary, these charter schools could be primary charter schools run by the universities. And actually that shows that the experiment isn't working, because they're trying to inveigle the universities, and we didn't really get a lot of enthusiasm from most of the universities about this, to come and put forward proposals that at least sound educationally credible. Because some of them, the charter school applications have been a disaster, and one of the existing schools has fallen apart, and, you know, watch this space. But actually, I think it's really important that a law about this acknowledges the importance of the difference between tertiary education and what happens at other levels. And I'm sorry, but we just don't, in the Greens, have confidence that the universities, apart from the fact that we don't believe in charter schools, and it's a rather internationally failed and controversial model that is yet to show benefit to this country, let alone the children, especially the children of whangaruru. Who cares what happened to them? Where are they? Guess what? I asked, and it turns out many of them are back in the state system that was so dreadful. And actually, I am a critic of things that happen in the state system, but I don't think that charters run by universities is the answer. I think we should be strongly critical and strongly innovative. But guess what? The review of the innovation qualities of charter schools said the only innovation of the first 9 was in governance structures. That's the only innovation they could find. Marching's not innovation. It's just prep for the army, because you're too scared to look these kids in the eye and say they've got potential to be all kinds of things, not just the cannon fodder of this country's nationhood. So I'm actually challenging what they're doing, particularly for the tertiary institutions. I just don't have faith. I've honestly heard submissions from some of the most academic and convoluted people from the tertiary institutions when we've talked about that in various bills, and I would not put a 5-year-old in a classroom with these people, because they don't know how 5-year-olds learn. They know how to give lectures. That's not education for younger people. It's not even education for anybody, actually. Most lectures are pretty disappointing, but there's a few people, brilliant people, who can lecture, but there ain't many out of there. You know, we've all experienced it at university. You never forget the ones who actually can say and communicate memorably, but should they run a school? I don't think so. I don't think that's what professors in universities are best suited to doing. So we're really opposed to that. We're really opposed to this bill. There's a couple of good things. We support the Ngārimu scholarships and the redefinition of the Pacific persons, because I think it's important to modernise. The rest of it, you know, it really isn't where we're at. Thank you.